Nothing screams romance more than a road trip. Hi, I'm Alan Ng, editor-in-chief of Film Threat, and today I'm talking about a road trip. It's Valentine's Day, romance is coming up. I've got Jan Miller Corran to talk about her film Along Came Along Came Wanda. I knew I was going to say that. And before we begin, I want to let you know how you can support Film Threat and all the efforts we do. Buy some merch. Go to shop.filmthreat.com. I've got this cool Film Threat the 13th t-shirt. We've got other ones, a whole slew of amazing shirts and designs, mugs, whatever you want. But again, yeah, we support indie films, and you know how that works. So help support us by going to Film Threat and filmthreatshop.com or shop.filmthreat.com. All right, enough of this stuff. Let's bring on Jan Miller Corran. Hi, how are you doing?
Fine. Good morning.
We're talking about your film, Along Came Wanda. And I'll be absolutely honest. I'm a dude. So when I was watching it, I'm like, I'm not exactly sure I'm part of the audience, but there's still a lot that I could connect with. And let's just open. It's a road trip, and it's one of these kind of midlife crisis road trips. And just kind of I feel like you have a lot invested in that story emotionally. How did the story come along for you?
In a couple ways. I think the pandemic drove a little bit of it. I had written a short film, just 8 or 9 minutes, about Mary Beth Higgins, and it was just mainly her and her son. And she ends her little short by saying, I'm going to get my life together. And then it was really Kathy DeBuono, who plays Wanda, and Constance Brenneman, who portrays Mary Beth, who said, we ought to make this a road trip. We ought to make a feature film. We ought to take them on the road. So that's how it was born. That was how the idea was born.
Mm-hmm. And, I was looking at your credits, and you're a very prolific producer, and I understand that this is your first film, your first writing and directing film. What was it that got you to say, yes, I'm going to do it? It sounds like the pandemic was a part of it.
Partially. Actually, it's my second film that I've made as a writer. I wrote and produced the feature film Snapshots, which came in 2018. I think this was biting the bullet and saying, gee, can I be a director? So I don't know. I just felt like, the film was saying to people, come on, use this time to do something you've always wanted to do. And so I decided to do it. I thought, I'll give it a try. So that's kind of how it evolved, that I got that much into it.
Mm-hmm. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a theme in it, and I liken it to like the midlife crisis. It's that moment in your adulthood where you really question where your life is taking you thus far, and I think your character looks back in time and some decisions she had made, and is wrestling with it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and I think midlife crises can come anytime in your life. These two characters are like that 38 to 42 age, which I guess is midlife. But I think whenever you have been in a rut for decades, doing the same thing over and over and over again, and then it changes, you have some choices to make, and that's what happened. I think all of us, there is some time in our life where we do have a massive change, and it's what do you do with it? Do you grow with it, change yourself, take a chance and do all the things you've never wanted to do, or do you stay in the rut for the rest of your life? And as we know, we only get one chance at this thing called life. And just like Mary Beth, suddenly it was like, the bells went off. No, I'm going to go after the brass ring. And that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly relate to that. I had an office job for a very long time, and um, and through circumstances that job went away, and it was kind of the decision of, what do I really want to do with my life, and
Mhm.
really thinking about my past and what I loved doing in the youth, and a lot of that involved film, and now getting kind of into independent film. Um, Let me ask you this. I was looking at your credits, and you're a very prolific producer. You've produced a lot of films, and a lot of them are, I would almost say most all of them are um, gay stories, lesbian stories. Is that right?
No, yes and no. I've done both. I'm really proud of the first film I ever did, which was in 1995, that I produced, was about Alzheimer's, and it was a
Mhm.
documentary. And it was the first time being in film, and lo and behold, got nominated for an Academy Award that year.
Oh.
So I thought, oh, that's nice. Anyway, I'm a neuropsychologist by trade. So I spent many years doing that until, about 10 years ago, I thought, I'm going to retire from all that and do what I love, which is getting back into film. So I've made a mixture of things, of shorts, of documentaries, of feature films, not all uh, in the LGBT realm. It's what I seem to know best for some reason. And I seem to be asked to be involved in those films. So
Mhm. Well, can I ask you then? I've reviewed, especially at Film Thread, a lot of LGBT stories, and I think um, I would say 90% of them tend to be coming out stories. But I felt like, I really want to start seeing that expand to just stories about the LGBT community. Can you talk to like the evolution of stories over the last 10 years?
I think you're absolutely right. I think that we have, and in fact, if you ask the lesbian community, they'll write to me and say, "Oh, please do not make a film where all of a sudden the woman who's married falls in love with her next door neighbor, and please don't make a film where somebody dies, and please don't make a film with." Well, in a sense, the lesbian string of stories isn't that different than the string of stories of anyone. The guy next door falls in love with the wife of his best friend. Um, that happens. But I think that the thing that comes back to me is that we have a pretty savvy audience out there, and they want a story. They want something that's just more than fluff. And so that's what I hope to do in the stories I tell, is to give them, some depth, some character, so a few laughs along the way, a few thought-provoking moments, that kind of thing. But yes, it has changed a bit in the way in what people were making to entice people to watch them. And of course, I write for a little bit more mature audience. And so, I don't write things for the teenagers.
Mhm.
It's not, I'm so far away from being a teenager. I don't know what they do. So, I go for the mature people. And believe it or not, mature people have love affairs and fall in love and go on journeys and have crises just like everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely influences there that I saw. It's definitely a romance. Along Came Wanda is a romance. I think of the Harlequin novels that were always on the paperback racks. The rom coms, so to speak. I assume that there's a lot of influences of that in your story.
Yeah, didn't think about it that way, but sure, any romantic comedy has, there's a pattern, there's a thread to it. Everyone who has seen the film has said, oh, another rom com, okay, And then after they watch the film, they go, "Oh, this is so much more than a romantic comedy." I mean, it's romantic, and yeah, it's got some funny, but there's such a serious story that is a thread that runs through the whole thing.
Yeah, and I also I've also when watching the film realized that it's very, I think a Southern California road trip is very different from a Northern California road trip. I mean, we've got Vegas, maybe Santa Barbara, but there are a lot of beautiful locations, a lot of interesting locations that your story takes you to, like a tranquility garden, so to speak. Uh, what have you been on road trips, and is this kind of how you've done these road trips?
Oh, definitely been on road trips, and road trips where ending up at a random destination that impacts your life. I think that, Wanda, because she's such a free spirit, has probably gone on many road trips and has probably gone with different people or even by herself. And I think she's taking Mary Beth to the places that impacted her in hopes that in turn they will impact Mary Beth. So yeah, they're not their standard taking off for Disneyland and meeting Mickey Mouse kind of trips. They have a little bit of a hopeful spiritual bent, not religious, but spiritual, and just an awakening kind of experience in many of the places they end up.
Yeah, and then another thing that I appreciate about Along Came Wanda is, and this is something that I see in new filmmakers, new indie filmmakers, and it's the idea of character development. Because sometimes we create characters and we give them the basics: gender, age, occupations, and I think we struggle with trying to create distinctness between characters. How did you develop Mary Beth and the Wanda character, and then how do what's kind of the tricks in having them interact well on in the script and on screen?
Well, they are polar opposite people. Mary Beth, I would say was raised in a middle to upper middle class family in the Midwest. She got married because that's what you're supposed to do. Had one child, probably could have had 2.5 and a dog named Shep, but she didn't have that in her life. And then you have Wanda, who basically has been a free spirit since she's been in her late teens, and kind of has to survive on her own with, her wits about her. So you see two people who you would think would never come together. But I built upon the fact that Wanda needs a Mary Beth in her life, and Mary Beth really needs a Wanda in her life. So little by little, as they learn more about each other and how different they are, their similarity becomes, the fact that they both want some stability. They both want to be loved for who they are. And they want to play upon, exactly the things that drew them together way at the beginning, when here Wanda was delivering packages as like the UPS lady during a pandemic, and that's how they met. So that's how it built.
Yeah, I do improv comedy, and character is something that's so important. And one thing I always consider when doing a scene with someone is, whatever character my partner does on stage, it always helps to be the exact opposite of that character in terms of energy, tone, and I think that's kind of the way life goes. It's, we grow only because we have that counterbalance in our life,
Mm-hmm.
and we're always challenged when something that something throws us off kilter, off balance a bit. And I think that's where good stories come from.
I agree with you.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, thanks for joining the Film Therapy podcast. Along Came Wanda is coming out on Valentine's Day, actually.
Well, it's going to actually come on February 7th. There'll be pre-order on Apple TV. And then on Valentine's Day, it'll be available on Apple TV, as well as all kinds of other platforms that people can find it.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it. It's not your typical romance. I think there's a lot more depth to it than that,
Yeah.
and I think that's a good alternative for those who may want something different than just kind of the lovey-dovey, the Harlequin, so to speak, the Lifetime
Yeah.
romance. All right.
Well,
Well,
thank you, Alan.
yeah, thank you, and yeah, go see visit us at filmthreat.com and go see Along Came Wanda. And we're almost there. I found it. There we go.